Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Ambo, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. I have the great privilege of serving our incredible students, parents, teachers, and administrators. I work most closely with our pre-K through 5th grade campuses. I'm also a mom to two boys, a 1st and a 4th grader here in Friendswood ISD. Perhaps some of you can relate to the roles that we as parents are juggling right now: screen time police, referee, teacher, and so many more. On top of that, we're also being asked to make an incredibly big decision for our children. My goal today is to walk through some specifics of the pre-K through 5th grade virtual learning option so that as you weigh this decision, you feel informed, or perhaps you've already made this decision for your family and are longing to know what a day in virtual school will look like for your child. Let me start by sharing that when designing this plan, it was important to us that we stayed true to our beliefs about teaching and learning here in Friendswood ISD. The belief that all children deserve high quality and engaging instruction, and that all students deserve to be challenged, supported, inspired, and cared for. So we have worked hard to replicate and bring forward the strong instructional practices that take place in our brick and mortar buildings to life for our students attending virtually. So let's start by talking about what happens when your child is officially enrolled in the pre-K through 5th grade virtual learning option. On August 6th, after enrollment, we've asked all parents to enroll on August 5th. So on August 6th, we will have a team gathered to begin looking at our virtual learning enrollment numbers, and as well as looking at staffing for our pre-K through 5th grade plan. Your child will then be on a Friendswood ISD virtual learning teachers roster. When you think about the virtual learning option for our pre-K through 5th grade students, I want you to envision almost a 5th elementary intermediate campus, right? So currently we have Klein and Westwood, Bales and Winsong. When enrolling in the FISD virtual learning option, you're enrolling in our virtual learning option school, if you will. These will be FISD teachers who are certified to teach the grades that they will be assigned to teach. Within the first week, we will have a very strategic and intentional onboarding process for our parents and students. This is a lot of feedback we took from our spring distance learning was how can we really inform and empower our parents and students to know how to access the technology platforms and feel comfortable accessing their schedule. So we planned very intentional onboarding for both parents and students. So in designing the schedules for our virtual learning students, we wanted to be very intentional about what we know about our youngest learners, our pre-K through 5th graders. So we've been very intentional with how long students may be on the screen, how long we're asking students to attend to synchronous lessons, and how long their asynchronous activities may take. So I will start by sharing just a few examples of some of these looks for you. So we talk about a blend of synchronous and asynchronous instruction for our virtual learning students. We've got some sample schedules that I would like to walk you through to hopefully paint a picture of what that might look like. So this is our sample pre-K through 2nd grade student schedule. And we think about developmental appropriateness. Let me point you to our orange blocks. Here at the top of our schedule, the orange blocks are synchronous instruction times. And just as a quick review, synchronous instruction is that direct, real-time instruction where the teacher is on the screen, being able to be responsive to students in front of him or her. So you'll notice that for most of our mini lessons for our pre-K through 2nd grade students, they're no longer than 15 to 20 minutes. And this is done with intention because we recognize that those students' attention spans are just a little bit shorter. So it's important to note that as we designed each of our schedules, we're very intentional with how much time we have students engaged in direct real-time instruction. You'll also know when we talk about developmental appropriateness for our pre-K through 2nd grade students in the design of our sample schedules, you'll notice that right below each of our orange times, we have something called independent practice or asynchronous instruction. And as a reminder, asynchronous instruction is where students are working on activities or assignments or application of the new learning that they just learned in our mini lessons. So that's time for students to log off the screen and apply their hand at the new learning. And you'll notice also that we have intentionally designed the asynchronous activities to be developmentally appropriate. There's been some questions that have come across our desk regarding, do students have to do their asynchronous activities at that time in the schedule? And the answer to that is no. We recognize that life happens, right? We recognize that some of our families will be educating several of their children from home. So our students would have the opportunity to complete the asynchronous activities throughout their day and then submit in the afternoon. They don't have to be completed always right after the mini lessons. Let me show you the same look on our sample 3rd through 5th grade schedule and show you how we really tried to plan for intentional developmental appropriateness. So if we go ahead and we move here to our ELA mini lesson, you'll notice that this time it's chunked with supported asynchronous work time. So I want you to envision, a 20-minute mini lesson where the teacher is teaching new concepts, teaching new learning, and then the students then have the other 20 to 25 minutes at that time to complete their asynchronous work. But again, students would have the option to complete that asynchronous work throughout the day, depending on their life and family needs at home. So all children will have a homeroom teacher, whether they're in our pre-K through 2nd grade group or our 3rd through 5th grade group. And every morning, our children will start out with their homeroom teacher. And you're also going to notice this chunk of time on our 3rd through 5th grade schedule as well. For our pre-K through 2nd grade students, we call this morning meeting time or class meeting time. In our brick and mortar buildings, this is often our most favorite time of the day, right? It's time to come together as a classroom community, to connect, to check in on each other, to build each other up socially and emotionally, and time to really connect with that teacher on the day's schedule. So you're going to notice this on both schedules, pre-K through 2nd and 3rd through 5th. Time to connect with that teacher, time to also review the day schedule, make sure all the students are aware of their synchronous lessons and their activities throughout the day. This is also intentional time for the teacher to check on any new students to that group. So I want you to think for a second, any new students could be students that may have had to pivot from in-person instruction and are joining this virtual class now because of quarantine or a lab-confirmed positive case. So this time is really important and critical in each of our schedules for that teacher to really connect with that classroom community, welcome new students, and walk through the schedules. So in our 3rd through 5th grade example, if we're still talking about that class meeting or that morning meeting or class connection time, you'll notice we're really intentional with that time here on our 3rd through 5th grade student schedule as well. This is always going to be done by the student's homeroom teacher for pre-K through 5th grade students. For our students in our 3rd through 5th grade virtual learning option, they could have more than one teacher though. So the homeroom teacher wouldn't necessarily teach all the subjects. They may have a departmentalized look to their schedule. So I want you to envision in our brick and mortar buildings here in Friendswood ISD, oftentimes in 3rd through 5th grade, students may experience switching, where one teacher may teach ELA and the other teacher teaches math, science, and social studies. So this is a possibility when we think about our 3rd through 5th grade student schedule. And again, that will depend on our staffing and our total enrollment numbers to our virtual learning option. Virtual learning teachers will be teaching live from their classrooms in most situations. We truly believe that this gives students the feel of a classroom. It's also where all of our teachers' instructional materials and their teaching tools live. In some cases, this may not be possible, but our goal is to have the opportunity for all students to feel like they're a part of a classroom, a part of a rich learning environment. Virtual learning option teachers will be following the FISD scope and sequences for pre-K through 5th grade. We've had an incredible team of over 65 teachers working together in several different areas over the summer to align our instructional practices and to align our standards. We've had some great questions come across our desks regarding if my student starts in person and for some reason they have to quarantine or pivot to virtual instruction, how do we maintain that instructional continuity? And we've worked really hard on that this summer. I'm incredibly proud of our pre-K through fifth grade team. So we want you to envision scope and sequences that all grade levels will follow in all 4 of our core content areas of math, science, social studies, and English language arts. So we have named what those standards are that they will cover in each of the 9 weeks, and we have named which of those standards are very essential to students mastering, and in what order will we cover those standards, as well as what approaches and strategies do we believe are high yield for students in person and high yield for students on the screen. This is very important for us to work hard on this summer as we prepare for instructional continuity, right? We want students and parents to feel comfortable that whether you're learning in person or if you have to bounce virtually or the other way, that we can provide strong, solid instruction for every learner. Okay, now let's talk schedules and how you might juggle these virtual learning schedules with multiple children, parents who are working, and life, because we know that life happens. So I'm going to start by pulling out our pre-K through second grade schedule and walking us through that in detail so that you guys have a better idea of what that virtual schedule might look like, and even the demands on parents and students throughout their virtual learning day. Before I go there, let me be very clear that in the places where you see orange here at the top of our pre-K through second grade schedule, you'll notice these are called mini lessons. And on our schedules, when you see the word mini lesson, again, this means synchronous instruction, direct real-time instruction with a teacher on the screen teaching new concepts to our students. These mini lessons will be recorded. Our goal is to record these mini lessons and load them to the teacher's LMS or her learning management system page. Our LMS for our pre-K through second graders is Seesaw, and our LMS for our third through fifth grade students will be Canvas. We want to provide the opportunity to have these recorded lessons on their LMS pages because, again, we recognize that life happens. We recognize that your child may not be able to attend every synchronous lesson every day. We know also that some of you may have multiple children at home that are learning in different platforms, and working as a parent to juggle that can be a challenge. So let's take a minute to walk through some of the chunks that you see here on the schedule, and in hopes that I can inform and make you feel comfortable about what your child may be experiencing. So I'm going to start with Monday as an example. So we've already talked about, we'll start with our morning meeting time to connect with children, welcome any new students. That's followed up each morning, and this is going to be intentional on the third through fifth grade schedule as well, with parent or learning coach support office hours. So again, we recognize that parents are jumping into a new role as well. They're jumping into the role of a true coach for their child learning at home. This is an intentional time where that teacher will be available on the screen for parents to log in and ask any questions. Maybe it's, I don't understand how to teach that fourth grade math concept. It's so different from when I've learned it. Maybe it's, I noticed my child really struggled on the assignment that she submitted yesterday. Can I talk more with you about how to help him or her? So time for that parent to have some access to that virtual learning teacher. We move over to Monday. Again, we have the orange is our mini lessons or our synchronous direct instruction. And so again, the teacher is teaching, in this case, a new English language arts concept, and then followed up with time for the student to apply what they just learned through a specifically designed activity in their LMS, again, Seesaw or Canvas. And just to reiterate one more time, the child wouldn't necessarily have to apply that learning right at that time. They could decide to apply it throughout the day. And again, an example of another mini lesson, this time it's called word work. That's also phonics or phonemic awareness. And you'll notice that mini lesson's a little bit shorter. Time again for independent practice or asynchronous instruction. If we move throughout our day on Monday, I want to point out the difference between these orange blocks and these blocks at the top. You'll notice this is called a mini lesson and this is called a small group. So small group instruction is a really intentional part of our day when we're in our brick and mortar buildings as well. This is time for teachers to truly personalize instruction for kids. This is time for teachers to enrich and extend for students who may need more of a challenge, or time for teachers to really clear up any confusion that they may want to clear up in a group of students that maybe they noticed still needed some refinement on certain concepts. So this is truly the personalized time in our schedule. And you'll notice an example, math small group on Monday, opportunity for an ELA small group on Tuesday, and we move back and forth throughout that schedule. So that's the biggest difference between small group instruction and mini lessons as well. You'll also notice some freer time here in the afternoon. Again, time for students to apply that asynchronous work as well. I do want to point out a question that we have received as well. If you'll notice, this blue block here is specials. So think when our students are in the building, that is art, music, PE. In some cases, we have library and technology on the rotation as well. So our specials instruction for our pre-K through 5th grade students will be asynchronous, meaning that there will not be a time that they log on and have real-time instruction from a PE teacher, art, or music teacher. These will be specially designed activities where students can apply their understandings, their practices, their activities in art, music, PE, at times library or technology. I do want to also point out this is a time that can be flexed in their schedule. We can offer flexibility. We put it on here as a time for specials to remind our families and students that that is something that they need to be doing, but it could be done at any point throughout the day when it works for the family. So now let's zoom in on the same conversation, but with our 3rd through 5th grade sample student schedule here. And again, be thinking as we talk through this schedule, this could be one teacher in some cases, or it could be 2 if we have more of a departmentalized look. Again, we start with our class connection time or our class meeting time in the morning, time to connect with our students, build that virtual classroom community, and also to welcome any new students. That's also followed up with parent or learning coach support office hours. We were intentional with keeping that time a little bit longer for our upper elementary or intermediate students because sometimes those questions are around concepts that perhaps we can help parents with as they're supporting their children. And again, we move to an example here would be the next block of their schedule, their ELA or English Language Arts mini lesson. So direct teach, synchronous instruction. Students would be on the screen engaging with the teacher, followed up with supported asynchronous work time. So again, the asynchronous work time typically will be a time for the student to disconnect from the computer in terms of being with all the students on the screen and have time to apply what they just learned, that specially designed activity, lesson, assignment in their LMS on Seesaw or Canvas. I do want to point out that part of responsive teaching that happens in our brick and mortar buildings as well as will happen virtually is that perhaps during the mini lesson, the teacher notices there's 1 or 2 students that are really acing the concept, perhaps. The teacher may, for example, ask those students to hang on with her on the screen and provide an activity that truly engages them. Perhaps when on the screen, the teacher notices there's some students that may be struggling. Perhaps they're not participating as much because maybe there's some confusion. So a responsive teacher may ask those students or individual students to hang on and come back on the screen so she can clear up any confusion and ensure that they're prepared for their asynchronous work time that day. So we do allow just a few minutes for those students to take a quick break, and then in this schedule they might log back in for science or social studies. Again, the same flow. Direct teach through the mini lesson, supported asynchronous work time. This could be, again, supported work time could be, let's stay on the screen and make sure you guys have that, or it's time to disconnect, you guys try that activity on your own. Time for a break, and then we move into our math mini lesson, followed by supported asynchronous work time there as well. It's important to note, as we build schedules, it won't always necessarily follow this exact flow, right? So we will build those schedules, but it will look the same, right? Time for a mini lesson, time for asynchronous work time. And those schedules will be shared intentionally with our virtual students and parents as they get to know their virtual learning teachers. And then again, time for specials for our 3rd through 5th graders. This again is asynchronous. This is asynchronous work time. So again, the specials activities and work could be done at any point throughout the day. And then again, a very similar look to our pre-K through 2nd grade students. We move to small group instruction, right? Again, this is our personalized instructional time throughout our day. In our brick and mortar buildings, small group time for English Language Arts is often called guided reading, right? So it'd be a very similar practice for our students in the virtual setting as well. And you'll see additional small groups time built in throughout the afternoon. What you will notice though is that small group time isn't on every day of the schedule, right? So you do have some flex time here on certain days where students could continue working on their asynchronous work as well. And we finish up our day on our third through fifth grade schedule with, again, time for that parent to reconnect with the teacher. Are there things that the child is trying to submit? There still may be some confusion, any trouble with technology. The teacher can be there available to answer any parent questions. When does my student counted present? When is my child counted absent? We've had a lot of questions around this, and we're happy to try to clear those up today. I'm going to go ahead and use one of our sample schedules again as an example. So we are submitting for our pre-K through 12th grade students asynchronous learning plans. The Texas Education Agency has given us clear directions on what needs to be included in an asynchronous learning plan for our students to receive credit for their virtual learning. So let me explain what that means, and I'm going to use Wednesday as an example for this schedule. So you'll notice on Wednesday, the child has opportunities to connect synchronously in the morning and has asynchronous work time built into their schedule with some intentional small groups. What we mean by an asynchronous learning plan is that students are counted present if they're making daily progress in their LMS on their asynchronous activities, meaning if the child is submitting the work that was assigned in each of the content areas daily, submitting that to their teacher through their learning management system of Seesaw or Canvas, and the teacher has an opportunity to review what they're submitting to discern progress for that child, the child would be counted present. We recognize that attending every synchronous lesson, as we've talked about, when life happens or you have several children at home, is a challenge, which is the reason that we will be recording those and loading those on our virtual learning teachers' Canvas or Seesaw pages. So attendance is going to be measured by your child's progress on the asynchronous work activities that they submit daily. And I want to reiterate that one more time, because that's probably one of the biggest differences between spring distance learning and our FISD virtual learning option. If you pull your memory back to spring distance learning, students submitted at the end of the week typically one assignment for each content area. For our asynchronous learning plan, in order to measure attendance, students have to make daily progress, daily work submissions in their LMS, right? So that would, let's take Wednesday, that would be a submission of their English work, their science or social studies work, and math assignments that day submitted through Canvas or Seesaw. So let's talk about grading for our students in our pre-K through fifth grade virtual learning option. So TEA has been very clear with us that our grading policies for our students in our brick and mortar buildings or in-person learning must mirror that for the grading policies of our kindergarten through fifth graders. So on our reopening website, you'll find the pre-K through fifth grade virtual learning option guidelines, and there is a link where you can click to access those grading policies and be assured that those will mirror the expectations for in-person learning as well. Also had some great questions about devices, about Chromebooks. So perhaps in the spring you were able to get by with maybe using your family computer or even having one additional Chromebook. But we recognize, again, if you're educating several children at home, you may find yourself in need of an additional device. So please be assured that there will be a process for requesting additional devices and picking those up safely. Please be assured that any children enroll in the pre-K through fifth grade virtual learning option will also have access to these services. So do know that upon enrollment, we'll be working hard to make those virtual learning rosters and looking at the kind of services our children need and deserve and preparing those schedules with those teachers as well. We covered a lot, and I hope that this maybe clears up some confusion or any questions that you guys may have had. Do know if you still continue to have any questions, want to ask anything else, we'll be coming live through Facebook next Tuesday, July 28th at 3 p.m. Thanks so much for listening.